In 1973, a TV crew went searching for a rumor in the frozen hills of England. What they found was a woman living exactly the way people lived in 1873. No electricity, no water, no heat, no human contact for 30 years. She had one dress, one coat, one pair of boots, and she never once complained. In 1973, a television crew from Yorkshire went searching through the frozen Pennine hills of northern England. They had heard a rumor, a strange, almost unbelievable rumor, that somewhere in those barren, windswept mountains, a woman was living entirely alone without a single modern convenience, exactly the way her grandmother would have lived 100 years earlier. What they found shocked them, and when they shared it with the world, it shocked all of Britain. Her name was Hannah Hauxwell. She was 47 years old, and for 3 decades, she had been completely invisible. Hannah lived on a place called Low Birk Hatt Farm, a small, crumbling stone cottage tucked deep into one of the coldest, most isolated corners of England. There were no neighbors for miles, no roads that could handle a car in winter, just endless rolling hills of rock and grass and silence. The cottage itself had only 2 rooms. The walls were made of thin stone, so thin that during the brutal Pennine winters, ice would form on the inside of the walls, not outside, inside, in the very room where she slept. There was no electricity, no light switch to flip, no appliance to plug in. When the sun went down, Hannah lived in darkness, save for whatever candles she could afford, which wasn't many. There was no running water, no faucet, no sink, no shower. Her only source of water was a small stream near the farm, and in winter, that stream froze completely solid for months at a time. When that happened, Hannah would gather snow and melt it just to have something to drink. There was no heating system, no radiator, no furnace, no fireplace insert. On nights when the temperature plunged below -20 degrees Fahrenheit, Hannah had nothing but a few old blankets between herself and the killing cold. There was no bathroom inside the house, just an outdoor privy, a wooden outhouse that she had to walk to in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, through snow that sometimes reached her waist. There was no telephone, no radio, no television, no newspaper delivery. The moon landing, the Vietnam War, the social revolutions of the 1960s, all of it happened without Hannah knowing. She existed in a bubble where time had simply stopped moving. But how did she end up here? How does a person in the 20th century fall so completely through the cracks? Hannah didn't choose this life as some kind of philosophical experiment. She wasn't trying to prove that humans could survive without technology. She wasn't making a statement about simplicity or self-reliance. She was a teenager when her parents died. They left behind a farm drowning in debt, a patch of rocky, unforgiving land that could barely grow enough to feed one person, let alone turn a profit. But it was all Hannah had. It was her home, her inheritance, her only connection to the family she had lost. So she stayed, and she worked. She woke before dawn every single morning. She broke the ice in her water bucket. She fed her cows by hand, a small herd that she tended in remote, steep fields where no modern machinery could reach. Those cows were everything to her. They were her income, her companions, and in many ways, her reason to keep going. Her entire income for the week was roughly £5, about $10. She earned this by selling 1 or 2 cows each year. That was it. That small amount had to cover everything for the entire year. Clothes, food, supplies, repairs, all of it from the sale of 1 or 2 cows. She owned exactly 1 dress, 1 coat, and 1 pair of boots. Each item was patched and repatched so many times that more of it was repair material than original fabric. Buying new clothing was an unthinkable luxury. Her diet was porridge, potatoes, and whatever scraggly vegetables she could coax out of the rocky soil around her cottage. Meat was a rarity. Variety was non-existent. Every meal was an exercise in mere survival. And then there were the seasons. two different kinds of war that Hannah fought every single year. Summer meant 18-hour workdays. She would cut hay entirely by hand, using methods that hadn't changed since the 1800s because she couldn't afford any kind of machinery. She had to stockpile enough food and firewood to survive the coming winter. She repaired fences, tended her fields, cared for her animals, all of it alone, all of it by hand, all of it under a sun that offered warmth but no mercy to someone working that hard. And then winter came. The Pennine winter is not an ordinary cold season.